This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
In that opening, I've said it before, but I got to say it again. The word inspire is there, and she is here, and she inspires. She really does. Inspires us to be creative, to really dig deep into what we've got in us. We all have creativity in us, but so many times, many of us will say, well, I can't draw, or I wish I could draw better. And then your creativity gets derailed. She is an amazing art therapist, which she could find insight in everything we do and maybe what we were thinking in that creativity. But let's inspire more creativity today with Barbara Robertson, who's back with us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thanks. Yeah, I'm excited because spring is beginning to show up more than maybe just a couple hours at a time. So I'm starting to believe we might just have seen the last of winter.
Well, I just got a thought here. Mother Nature is very creative now, isn't she?
Absolutely. Yes, yes, and also very structured. It never occurred to me until I ran across this. I don't know if I read it or heard it or where I encountered this thought, but it's actually fairly remarkable that whatever exists in nature, in biology, reproduces itself. So if a seed falls from a particular kind of flower and manages to fall in fertile ground and gets enough water and light, another version of that same species of flower is going to grow from that seed. When an acorn falls from an oak tree, you don't get a beech tree or an elm tree, you get an oak tree. And while that may kind of seem as obvious as anything could possibly be, until I heard it actually spoken out loud, it never occurred to me to think, that actually provides us with some structure about what we can expect from the world. Some predictability, some order.
In one way, it's wonderful to have that in the predictability in our creativity. Because I wish, when I did creative things, I could predict how it's going to come out. But then again, when that seed drops and it blossoms, it's predictable that that's going to be an oak tree, but we never know what the tree is going to look like.
That's true. How many branches it's going to have, how tall it's going to grow to, how old it's going to be. And actually, with creativity, here's the fun part. We get to break that rule of biology, of nature, of science. We get to feel like there's a seed of something that wants to be expressed in us. And if we allow ourselves to kind of plant that seed in the garden of our imagination, and then strive to make an image that might represent what that seed could grow into. If we allow ourselves permission to create art for the purpose of expression rather than naturalistic representation, who knows what that seed might blossom into?
It's kind of interesting when you think about it, because every tree, there's not one tree that's the same. And some are like the nature's creativity, even just the formations of the way the tree grows, the root system and all of that. How can we get past that? I wish I could draw better.
Well, that really is something that I encounter frequently. And I think that that's a feeling that really needs to be respected. Because when we can develop more fluent drawing skills, it really broadens the methods that we have at our literally at our fingertips with which to express something that wants to be expressed in us. And so there is kind of a tension between the skills of representation or drawing that we've managed to learn or absorb or practice enough to feel reasonably good at, and what we want to express. And sometimes we feel pretty frustrated that we don't have the skill that we want to create the kind of image that we want. So I've come across an interesting kind of proposal from a gal named Melanie Schambach, who is herself quite a creative thinker. And she publishes on Substack, and she's got a work that she calls Art in All. And she often will address some of the issues or conundrums or puzzles that come up as you are trying to find your own way in your creative life. And one of the things I ran across recently was this discussion of the tension between practicing art skills, investing time in doing that, and making expressive art. And sometimes people feel like, well, I've got to practice the art skills first. It's sort of like, well, I have to do scales on the piano before I can really play a tune. Well, you can approach it that way, but then there are also people who learn music by ear, who listen to a song or who hear it sung and then go to the piano or the ukulele or whatever they have access to, and then figure out the notes that make up that melody, and then become able to play that melody in a way that expresses what they love about it or brings it alive for them.
It's almost like it's a reverse engineered. Instead of, let me learn how to play, then I'll create. Just create.
That's right. That's right. And it's interesting because that's exactly how we learn language as kids. Nobody instructs us that, well, this is a noun and this is a verb, and you have to know how to make nouns multiple, and you have to know how to make the verbs fit with how many people are doing whatever it is the verb is describing doing. We can speak very fluently without knowing a single label for what part of grammar we've combined into a very fluent or articulate sentence. So I think we do sometimes get hooked or hung up on the sense that we're supposed to know what it is before we use it.
I'm going to ask you a question I've never asked. And I'm thinking I
Go
probably
for
should
it.
have asked it. Is any creative work, we're talking about art here, but let's go broad. Music is creative. Everything, anything creative, any kind of creative work. Is it always created to process emotion or evoke feeling? There's a reason it's being done. It's not just, I'm just going to draw a picture. There's an intent, an emotional, energetic intent or release.
That's a really important word, intent. Yes, absolutely. And, if you feel like you want to sit down and do some art that expresses something that matters to you, well, there's your intent right there. And the way to approach would be to, you're choosing a meaningful subject that you want to create about. So you've got some sort of feeling about it. It might be that you want to create some art about something that you just utterly loathe. It doesn't have to be, expressive art especially does not have to adorn walls with visual beauty. Some of the most expressive art that I've ever seen is expressing anger or hurt or grief in, heavy, broad swaths of black and purple and dark blue and other colors that for the artist carry that feeling. And it's a way of giving shape or form to experience. And whether it's a joyful or a pleasurable experience or a sad or difficult experience, I think the fact of giving shape to our experience is one really big thing that connects us to other human beings.
Mm.
Even if there's not another human being present who's going to see what we just expressed, who knows? Maybe, you stuff it in a portfolio, and the next person to open that portfolio is a great grandchild looking in the attic because, that portfolio just never was discovered or looked into, and that young person pulls out these drawings that, were done 50, 70, 80 years ago and has an experience of witnessing another individual's momentary experience of something in life.
You created whatever you created for a reason. That's what I'm getting. Even if it's for pleasure. I got a Sunday afternoon free. It's a rainy day. I'm gonna do a little painting here. Just have a little, not even being serious. And God bless you if you're that person. You're far ahead of the game. But just to break out the palette of paint, you had some parchment paper, whatever, and you went at it. There was a reason. You chose the subject. You used the certain brush strokes. There was an intent there. And I mean this in very positive ways. Maybe you needed to release something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the words you used initially to describe that happening are sort of a tell on one of the things that holds us back. Because what I heard you say was, even if it's just to have some pleasure, some fun in doing it. So even just is sort of like, well, we're not really supposed to let ourselves just do something for fun. We're grown-ups. We need to be serious about life. And that creates a hurdle for some of us.
Oh, yeah.
Like, really, you sure I'm not wasting time? You sure it's okay for me to just do something that's not really significant? Well, who knows? It could be really significant for you, and you won't know unless you jump in and try it.
What you just said there, we need to put a microscope on, because I feel that's where we're at today. Back in the day, we had less pressure, less distractions, less things going on. And I think it was easier to be creative where, you have that Sunday, I'm going to do it. Now, well, I think I got an hour, so I'm going to try and get the paint out. And but am I really wasting my time? Because if it doesn't come out the right way I want, blah, 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 and I'm not going to do it. And then you don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pressure out there to be productive.
Yeah.
I think that's part of, the downside of not really harnessing mindfully what commerce is all about.
Mm.
And I think sometimes we've given over our soul to it. And that's where we lose that sense of, my pleasure is valuable. My pleasure is part of what makes me a person that other people might enjoy being around. We all have that friend who's always finding something wrong with what's going on. But if I just had a little painting session and I was really tickled with the way it came out or with how I felt while I was doing it, even if I thought, it's not the greatest thing, but that was really fun to try.
Are there some things that we can do? I'm going to get a little granular here because I believe a lot of us struggle with it. I have limited time. I don't want to waste my time, but I want to be creative.
Right.
I feel that I need to do this, but then you feel guilt and all of that. I'm taking the time for myself to it's, I just had a epiphany. Doing something creative is self-care.
Absolutely.
I never looked at it that way. And I've done millions of podcasts on self-care. I never thought of it that way. Oh my gosh, it really is.
Yeah, it's self-care, and I'll take it a step further than that. It's self-acquaintance. Because if we're approaching, doing some expressive art, even if we don't know how to draw, we still can go, oh, that red orange color is really calling me today. So I'm going to start with a big smear of that color right in the middle of the page and then see what happens. What happens and if we can give ourselves permission to go with our intuition, which is the part that spoke up about, seeing that color as magnetic in some way. If we can stay on that intuitive track, we begin to really be able to feel what's going on inside us as we're involved in this process outside of ourselves. That is, taking the feelings that we have inside and letting them show up in the paper in some way that it feels like they want to.
Hmm.
And then as we look at that and we notice what really, is my heart's delight as I look at this. Sometimes I use a little rectangular viewfinder. You look through it like it used to be in the cameras. You could look through and see the rectangular image and pull the camera further away or
Sure, sure.
closer. And you see more or less, you're basically cropping the image. And just by changing the distance of that little viewfinder from the image or from your eye, you can really look at 87 different compositions on one, 12 by 18 sheet of paper that is full of colors and lines and shapes. And the more you know about when and where your heart lights up, the more you know that something in you is really functioning as a compass, as sort of lights up when you're going into a zone that speaks or feels like love or joy or light or something that is pleasing to us. And that's basically how we know what we value.
I think this goes back to something I hear often, and I always forget it. And that is, listen to your heart. What are you feeling? Not what are you thinking? What are you feeling?
Right.
I'm going to paint something. What do I want to paint? I'm going to give myself 2 hours. What can I paint? Or at least start a painting. As you look around, you come up with subjects, or maybe it's a photograph from a trip or something like that. Really, like you said, use your intuition and listen. What comes up? What do you truly feel? But feel it in your heart, not in your
That's
head.
right. That's right. And I think one thing sort of inhibits that for a lot of us, and that is that we don't all have ready language access to describe what we're feeling. But again, it's kind of like using language before you know you're saying a noun or a verb. You can have a feeling and notice the quality of it without giving it a verbal label to identify it. You can notice its qualities. Okay, so this feeling is a high energy feeling. This feeling is kind of like a tingle all up and down my spine. Or this feeling is a heavy feeling. Oh, I feel so weighed down when I really focus on this feeling. Where's the heaviness? Oh, it's like right here. It's hard to kind of breathe when I really picture that heaviness. So I haven't labeled those feelings. I haven't said they're good or bad feelings. I'm just noticing what it is about them, how they're showing up in me.
You've done a lot
And
of
that can go straight on the page.
you've done a lot of creative things in your
Sorry?
life. When you think back to them, was it more the deeper question here? When you think back to what you've done,
Hmm.
was it more to to help you feel better about something, or more for this just makes me happy. I'm going to do something joyful. Can you think, put up like a 50-50 on that, or maybe it's a 60-40? What do you think?
I think for a long time, I really didn't have a sense of why I was doing what I was doing. I was responding to something that was urging me to do it, urging me to paint or create with wire and beads and fabric. I really kind of changed the kind of medium that I've used periodically. But always to kind of try to find something that is exciting to me to be able to create and see to completion.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because for quite a long time, I did not learn how to quiet or appease that sort of inner critic voice that I think all of us have to some extent. And so I wasn't really adamant about getting my work out where it could be seen or appreciated by other people because I was afraid that, I'm just quirky enough that maybe nobody else could see any point to this work that I've created at all. And now, 20, 30 years later, I'm looking back at the stuff I made and kind of wondering, like, why didn't I believe in that more strongly?
Mm.
I had just enough to create it, but not enough to share it.
I do the same exact thing. As you know, I wanted to be a cartoonist back in the day, and I look back at my stuff. I actually did last night. Just I happened to have them on my phone. I'm like, and again, I was like 22 back then, and
Right,
I'm
right.
like, and what was I thinking when I created it? And as I look back, I'm like, damn, you were actually pretty good. Now, I pulled inspiration from other cartoonists, but
Oh, sure. Yeah.
like I looked at, how I had a thing for blending the blacks and the whites, so there's good contrast on the board, and even the
Yep.
humor. It was it just there was more there than I realized at the time. But I was just what you said. People aren't going to really get what I got going on here. Um, I got bullied as a kid, so I was like, that would be the worst thing to be, panned in something. I
Right.
don't. The worst thing you could hear is
Yeah.
somebody look at a cartoon comic strip and say, "I don't get it." Oh,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
and
right.
and that's just
Yeah.
the gag. Then we don't. What about the art? That's the other part.
Right. Right. Well, it's interesting that a couple of ideas that I wanted to really kind of put out there too are how do we measure our own success when
Mm,
we're engaging in this? And if you're trying, undertaking, like maybe you found a tutorial on how to do shading or how to blend colors or something, and you give yourself an hour, maybe not even all at once, maybe three little 20-minute sessions where you give it a try. You measure success by degree of improvement, not by achieving perfection, but by did the
mm,
first thing I tried look exactly like the last thing I tried? Can I see a difference? What did I learn? So it's really your outcome is measured by being able to identify at least a little bit about what you did better by repeating it and trying again and trying again. And then in terms of expressive art, how do you judge whether your expressive art is successful? Again, that doesn't have to do with does somebody want to put it on their wall? It has to do with was I present? Was I fully present? Did I let my whole being participate in this creative process? So that you're really focusing on what's happening in the moment, not in how is it going to turn out. And then your outcome is measured by the impact it then has as you look at it, as you take it in after it feels complete. Or you go back to it 2 months later and see what is it saying to me today that maybe I didn't notice when I painted it.
mm. What you just said isn't just for creativity; it's for life.
In a lot of ways, yes.
It
Yep,
really
on
is.
many levels, right.
It really is because we don't celebrate the wins and we look back a month or so. If you look back in the past year, 365 days right now, back to this date back then, look at what you did. Look at what transpired. Look at some of the challenges and hurdles you got over. Look at
That's right.
these things. How did you pull them off? Look at your growth. I honestly see it in myself. Um,
Yes, yes.
in little ways, but they're big ways.
But they are big, and I think it's so important to take some time and step back and honor that because honestly, we're not wired biologically to attend to things that have gone well. And in fact, for example, if you happen to be a person that has a lot of anxiety, you can go through scary things and never have it quite register that you got through that scary thing okay because your anxiety is always already sort of jumping to the next thing to be anxious about. And so you never get to sort of say to your being, the part that generates the anxiety, hey, we got through that. Hey, we've got resources. We were able to handle that. I'm
Yeah.
still here. I'm all in one piece. Maybe we don't have to get so freaked out next time. So I
Mm.
think it's really important to do that.
There's so many parallels here, and we are talking about creativity, but even the word, as you described that, Barbara, resilience comes to mind. But you can also be
Yes,
resilient in your creativity where let's say you just started painting a year ago and you get a little bit better. And then maybe you overcame some challenges. I never used to be able to draw, flowers. Now they actually come out really good. All right. And resilience in critique. If somebody's not feeling what well, that's good for them. They interpret it that way. I got what I got going on here.
exactly. Everybody brings their own story to what they see. Yeah. And, it's even possible to celebrate that you made a painting, an image, a sculpture, a form that strikes you as really ugly. What is to celebrate in that is that you didn't insist on everything having to be perfect.
Mm.
That's evidence that you tried something you didn't know quite how to do yet. And that's worth celebrating as well.
That's so true. And it is in life as well, because if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, hey, good for you. That's great. It came out fantastic. All right. Well, where did you move forward? Where did you embrace discomfort? I always draw trees and they come out great. Oh, good for you. But all right, well, try something else because let's say
Right.
you can't draw animals. You can't draw people. Well, embrace that discomfort. Eventually, you will be able to, and then you'll celebrate that win, looking back, saying, "Wow, I pulled that off. That actually looks like that person."
That's right. And it may be that in a drawing in which you unintentionally distorted the way that something appears in real life, you look at that later and you go, wow, I'm getting such a strong feeling from the gesture in that tree, the way I tilted it over and made this bend in the trunk. I know that tree wasn't really like that, but wow, that's really giving me a unique feeling.
Mm.
It's not a stereotypical tree. That is a very particular tree that was formed with a very particular set of forces, weather, sun, dryness, rain, flood, you name it.
Mm.
It's a record of experience.
Pretty amazing how what we're talking about here is creativity and art, but it's lessons for life. It really is.
Art really is, it's like a lab for life. If you
Mm.
can generalize from the studio to walking out into the world, you've pretty much got it made.
Wow. This is what
At
you
least
do.
you've got a lot of tools to work with.
You've
This is what I do.
you woke me up. Like honestly, in a lot of the things that we talked about today, um, I never connected it to life in general, but there really is deep connections there for the things that challenges us, where we don't move forward, we stay stuck in certain areas because it's safer and it's perfect, but that's not what life is about. We're here to grow. Robertson Art Therapy LLC.com. Thank you for bringing this to the table today. I really got it. I honestly like a lot of thoughts.
I'm so happy to have this opportunity to do that because I really, my heart just wants everyone to know this is literally at your fingertips and it can do so much to give you resilience and, believe in yourself and find the place in life where you really know you belong because you're who you are for no other reason than that.
And also, so you don't have to do what we did earlier and say, well, back then, 30 years ago, I wish I had more confidence,
Exactly.
more resilience, and all of that. We're here to help.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
That's
much,
right.
Barbara. Appreciate you. Have a wonderful holiday weekend, and we'll catch up soon, okay?
You too. Till next time.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.